Ever felt like every fight with your partner turns nuclear, even over something tiny? Like you ask an innocent question, hey, did you mean to leave the milk out? And suddenly they're in DEFCON 1 territory. One of you is defensive, the other is shutting down. And before you even realize it, you're not talking about milk anymore. You're in a full blown battle neither of you ever wanted. And here's the thing, it's not because you're bad at communicating, it's because your nervous systems are in survival mode. And when trauma is in the mix, whether it's your partner's, yours, or both, conflict doesn't just feel hard, it feels impossible. But here's the good news, it doesn't have to stay that way. Today, we're breaking down exactly why these spirals happen and what you can actually do about it. Because once you understand how your nervous system works, how your partner's nervous system works, and what it needs to feel safe again, conflict stops being this terrifying battlefield and starts becoming a bridge back to connection. So let's get into it. Hi, I'm Danielle. And if you've ever thought, if I could just say this the right way, everything would calm down, you are so not alone. I used to think the exact same thing. I'd rehearse what I wanted to say in my head, stay calm, stay gentle, stay logical. And then I'd bring it up with my husband, thinking this time will be different. But it didn't matter how careful or calm I was. If he was already triggered, it was like my words didn't even land. And sometimes they even made things worse. And I remember thinking, what am I doing wrong? Why can't we just talk like normal people? And it took me years to realize it wasn't about saying it perfectly. It was about what state his nervous system was in. And honestly, what state mine was in too. Because here's the truth, you can have the best communication skills in the world. But if either of you are in survival mode, all that logic, all those I statements, they don't even register. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand why conflict spirals so fast in trauma impacted relationships. And you'll walk away with real practical steps to start creating safety instead. Not fake safety where you just avoid everything, right? But real safety where conversations don't have to feel like landmines anymore. All right, let's start with the foundation because this piece will make everything else make sense. Okay, before we dive into the sciencey part of the nervous system, I want to tell you a story because it's going to make everything I'm about to explain really stick. After college, I was a total career woman, just starting out as a pharmacist. And for some reason, I needed a new challenge. So I took up running. And honestly, this was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I met this incredible community of women, including my two best friends, Bree and Jenny. We had this gorgeous park in the middle of the city. It's called Greeno Park. It's got a paved path around it, but off that path are all these little dirt trails that lead down to creeks over little bridges. It really, truly is a magical place to run in my hometown of Missoula, Montana. But one spring morning, the three of us were out there early, and Bree was leading. Jenny and I were just chatting behind her when we decided to take one of those dirt trail offshoots. We're running along, talking, when suddenly Bree stops dead in her tracks. Jenny and I kind of bump into her, and she turns around with this pent up excitement almost and whispers, "It's up." Now, I need you to know a little bit about my friends. Bree is my environmentalist. She worked at the Humane Society at the time. She loves animals, has been camping a million times. Jenny, however, she loves the outdoors, but really doesn't like to touch the outdoors. So you won't catch her camping anywhere that doesn't have running water. I mean, I'm somewhere in between, but here's what happened in that split second. Bree turned around, got big, arms out, and she went into fight mode. Jenny She didn't even hesitate. She turned around and took off running. And the last thing I could see was the bottom of her hokas as she was all the way down the path. And me, I just stood there frozen. I was hovered behind Bree in full on freeze mode. Thankfully, the bear just wandered across the trail into someone's yard and started chewing on an apple that he found in the tree. But here's why I tell you this story. Our three different reactions, the fight, flight, or freeze, are the exact same survival responses your nervous system has when it thinks you're in danger. Now, imagine this. What if I hadn't just seen one bear? What if I was a kid running into bears all the time? And some of those bears got aggressive, some hurt me. And I'd start to see bears everywhere. I'd ask people if they'd seen the bear, and they'd say no. And then I'd run into one of them anyway. I'd stop trusting people. I'd start to believe danger was around every corner because for me, it was. This is what happens when kids who grew up in danger, chaos, or abuse, their nervous system learns the world isn't safe. And that wiring doesn't just go away when they grow up. So fast forward to adulthood. That hyper alert brain, that bear detector is still on high. It sees danger in things that actually aren't dangerous, like you innocently asking your husband, hey, can you do the dishes tonight? What you meant, a normal everyday request. But what his trauma brain hears is you're failing, you're not enough, you're a terrible husband. And then you see it, the fight, snapping back, getting defensive, or the flight, ignoring you, walking away, the freeze, shutting down completely. And when you see those reactions, when you feel that pushback or that wall, your nervous system kicks in too. And suddenly you're both responding to bears that aren't even there. And that's how conflict becomes this endless cycle of distress, distance, and distrust. So if you've ever wondered, why does he react like that to something so small? This is why his nervous system is still seeing bears everywhere. And until we understand how that wiring works, we can't change the way we respond to each other. Now that you see how this wiring gets created, let's talk about what it means for conflict. Until we understand how that wiring works, we can't change the way we respond to each other. Now that you understand how the trauma wiring forms and how someone's nervous system can start seeing bears everywhere, let's talk about what actually looks like in your relationship. Because here's the hard truth. Conflict feels impossible in trauma-impacted relationships, not because you're broken, but because your nervous systems are working against you. When someone grows up with trauma, chronic trauma, neglect, abuse, chaos, you name it, their nervous system doesn't just have the occasional bear moment. It lives there. That state of hyper alertness, it becomes normal. And when that happens, something called CPTSD, complex PTSD, often comes into play. And this isn't just about one scary event. This is about years of the smoke alarm blaring so often that it just doesn't know how to turn off anymore. So what happens when that person grows up and tries to have an intimate adult relationship? Also, just normal working environments. Even the tiniest thing can trip the alarm. And here's what that might look like. You say, I just need some space right now. And they hear, you don't love me. Or you ask, are these the fries you like? Just trying to be thoughtful. And they feel, wow, I can't even get fries right. I'm failing again. Yes, that fries story, that really happened to one of my clients. And I thought I was being helpful. He felt criticized. He got instantly defensive. And the conversation went sideways before they even know what happened. And it's not just the misunderstanding, it's the survival response that follows. Anger, that fight mode coming out as blame or criticism, shutdown, the freeze mode when they won't talk at all, sometimes for days. Avoidance, the flight response, where they find something else to do, anything but this conversation. And here's the kicker: when their trauma response shows up, it almost always triggers yours. You feel hurt, you feel rejected, and you feel like no matter what you say, it's wrong. And without meaning to, you start reacting as well. Now we're in a feedback loop, each nervous system making the other's alarm louder. And that's why all the communication tips you've read, the I statements, the calm tones, the active listening often don't work in these moments because they're designed for a regulated nervous system. But in trauma impacted relationships, conflict doesn't start with a gentle, calm, regulated state. It starts with alarms already blaring. And when the alarms are going off, you can't just talk your way out of it because your partner's body, and maybe yours too, doesn't feel safe enough to even hear the words. And that's why conflict feels impossible. It's not that you don't love each other. It's not that you're not both trying. It's that your nervous systems are screaming danger. And here's the important part. Once you understand that, you can start changing the way you respond, which is exactly where we're headed next, because this isn't just about understanding what's happening. It's about learning how to interrupt the cycle and stop feeding the alarm. Let's talk about how your nervous systems actually trigger each other and what you can do about it. Okay, so now we know why your partner's nervous system, and maybe yours, is on high alert. But here's where things get really tricky. Your nervous systems don't just react, they react to each other. And this is called co-regulation when it's healthy and co-dysregulation when it's not. And here's what that means. When one of you is calm, grounded, steady, the other person can feel that and settle too. That's co-regulation. But when one of you gets triggered, it's like lighting a match near dry grass. Suddenly their alarm systems are all setting off. And now you've got two blaring alarms feeding each other. So let me paint the picture. Your partner gets angry, raises his voice. Your nervous system feels threatened. So you go into retreat, or you snap back too. And that triggers his system even more. Now he's louder, you're more defensive, and round it goes. Or maybe it looks like your partner shuts down, won't talk, won't engage. Your nervous system panics. Are they leaving me? Do they even care? And start pushing harder for a response. And the harder you push, the more they shut down. And that's the feedback loop. And the more that loop spins, the faster conflict escalates until you're not even arguing about the original issue anymore. You're just reacting to each other's reactions. And this is why so much traditional communication advice falls flat in trauma impacted relationships. You've probably heard, just stay calm, use I statements, don't raise your voice, don't take it personally. All good advice if both people are already calm. But when the nervous systems are already in survival mode, logic, it just doesn't land. The I statements don't land. Even your calm voice might feel like pressure to them, and their silence, it might feel like rejection to you. And here's the thing, neither of you wants this cycle. But until you can see it for what it is, two nervous systems triggering each other over and over again, you can't break it, which is exactly what we're going to talk about next. Because yes, this can change. And it starts with learning tools that actually calm the alarms instead of just throwing more words at them. Let me walk you through the tools I teach my clients, the ones that finally started to shift things in my very own marriage, the pause method. All right, we've talked about why conflict feels impossible, but now let's talk about how to change it. Because the truth is, you can change this dynamic, not overnight, not perfectly, but in real powerful ways. And here's why this matters. Right now, there's a cycle you and your partner might be stuck in. I call it the distance, distrust, defense cycle. And here's how it plays out. When someone has experienced trauma, their brain is hyper alert to danger almost 100% of the time. And that means things that wouldn't feel threatening to most people do feel threatening to them. And you might ask innocently, like, hey, can you do the dishes tonight? And what you mean is, hey, can you help out? But what his trauma brain is hearing is you're failing, you're not a good husband. And then the trigger response, the fight, the snapping back. I can't believe you'd even ask me that. The fight, ignoring you and burying himself in something else. The freeze, shutting down and refusing to talk. And here's the thing, you meant no harm. But when you see that reaction, you feel hurt, confused, and maybe angry. Your nervous system starts buzzing too. So you pull back or push harder. Now there's more distress in the relationship, which creates more distance. And distance feeds distrust. Distrust fuels defensiveness. And the cycle keeps spinning, each reaction making the trauma brain even more hyper alert, always waiting for the next danger, the next shoe to drop. But here's the key. We have to upset the cycle and start creating a healthier one. Not with one giant move, not with one perfect conversation, but step by step, moment by moment. And that's where my pause method comes in. It's the 5-step process I teach my clients. And honestly, it's what saved me in my own marriage when I felt like nothing else was working. So let me walk you through it. P means press pause. So right when things start to escalate, your instinct might be to talk faster, explain harder, or push for resolution right now. Here's the truth. When you or your partner are in survival mode, words will not fix it. And you know it. You've tried. So the first step is simple, but not easy. And that is to press pause. Step away from the heat of the moment before the fire spreads. The A is for accept it's not about you. This one is huge. When your partner gets defensive or shuts down, it's so easy to think, I'm asking for too much. I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the one who's crazy. But most of the time, their reaction isn't actually about you. It's about the alarm systems screaming danger. Accepting that truth doesn't excuse hurtful behavior, but it keeps you from personalizing every reaction and spiraling right along with them. U is unlock clues and wait. This is where you become a detective and not a judge. Start noticing patterns. What situations seem to set off their alarms? What phrases? What timing? And then, and this is the key, you wait, because not every moment is the moment for a big talk. Sometimes the best thing you can do is hold the conversation for later, when the alarms are quiet and you can both think clearly. The S is seek support. You don't have to do this alone. Sometimes that support looks like a trusted friend, a therapist, a coach, someone who can help you with the process of what happened and figure out your next step. And sometimes it's simply reminding yourself that you're not crazy for feeling how you feel. Support creates steadiness. And the E is so critical. It's engage when ready. Only when you're calm, only when they're calm do you re-engage. This is where you bring the issue up again, but from a place of regulation and safety, not panic. Because here's the thing, conflict isn't about avoiding hard conversations. It's about learning how to have them safely. This method works because it disrupts the distance, distrust, and defense cycle. Instead of feeding the alarms, you're calming them. Instead of reacting to their reaction, you're creating a new response, and you don't have to do it perfectly. Some days you're going to forget to pause. Some days you are going to take it personally, and that's okay, because this isn't about being flawless. It's about building a new habit, one small choice at the time. And those small, consistent changes, they start to add up. They start to bring safety back into your relationship. One moment, one pause, one calmer conversation at a time. And that leads me to something really important. The expectations you need to hold as you practice this, because it's not about instant fixes, it's about steady progress. Okay, so here's what I want to leave you with. This isn't about never having conflict again, because real talk, conflict isn't the enemy. Conflict is how two people with different needs, wants, and experiences try to come together. The goal isn't to erase conflict. The goal is to make conflict safe. And safe conflict doesn't mean quiet or fake or just sweep it under the rug. I know you've tried that, right? It means you can talk about hard things without destroying each other in the process. I want to be honest with you. This isn't a one and done thing. It's not like you hear this once, try the pause method, and boom, everything changes. It's practice, it's patience, it's giving yourself permission to get it wrong, to try it again, and keep showing up. You're not failing if you need to start over tomorrow, because every time you choose to pause, to not take it personally, to wait for the right moment, you're laying one more brick in the foundation of safety in your relationship. And here's the real takeaway I want you to hold on to: conflict doesn't feel impossible because you're broken or incapable. It feels impossible because your nervous systems are screaming danger. The good news is, once you learn to understand the alarms and respond in ways that create safety instead of more fear, everything starts to shift. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop feeling like you're one wrong word away from disaster. And instead, you start building a relationship where both of you can exit. And if you want to go deeper with this, I've created something for you. It's a free guide that gives you word for word scripts for those follow up conversations when you need to re engage. The exact phrases that work in trauma impacted relationships when you feel like nothing you say lands. The link is in the description, so grab it after you finish watching, because you deserve to feel more heard, less blamed, and way more connected, even during conflict. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.